Okay. So I just happened to do one of these. Look how pissed off she looks back there. This is the first time in a little bit she's been in the car with me when I've gone to do a video. She remembered what we were doing. She wasn't happy. Doesn't help that we got a really slow short walk in today. We are over here at the park, the actual park, and the roads were cleared, but not real super, because who wants to come hang out at the park when it's like 10 degrees out, right? And, you know, like, a bunch of the snow that was there melted, you know, because we had like, I don't know, like 7 to 10 inches so far in January. Yeah. So they haven't got their walk in since the 2nd, and they've been going stir crazy, and it was really treacherous when I get them out of the car to wander around here. And, you know, there's still a good amount of snow on the ground and all that fun stuff. But when I got out of the car, they started pulling. I went sliding. So it was real fun. And then we went over to the sidewalk, and they don't salt the sidewalk, so yeah, I went sliding again. So it's like, yeah, we're not going on an actual walk. It was just a little short thing. So they got to sniff some, and everybody got to potty, so there was that. But yeah, the whole journey, they weren't impressed. Tomorrow it's supposed to be in the 30s, so I think high 30s too. So I think we're gonna lose some more of the snow. And so I should be able to, well, we'll walk probably over at the school where it's melting off more. Not in the grass where it's like super muddy, because that won't be cool. Yeah. But they'll get that, and then I'll go skate. And in the meantime, I love these dogs. Yeah, so I don't think they really got the stupid bangs. I don't know if I'm okay. I'm glad that I added them or went with them after my hair was breaking, or if it's more trouble than it's worth, because I get really distracted by them when I'm looking at something that has, you know, that shows me my bangs. Anyway, I'll try not to do that the entire time, but absolutely no promises. Yeah, so Zibby probably has a little bit of a headache when we were coming in to the cemetery, or like in the front section. Damn squirrel ran like I saw it just right at the corner. It was like it barely missed the wheel, but he didn't get run over. But I had to hit the brakes real hard, and she took a tumble, and then I felt bad. Yeah. And the squirrels are everywhere. So yeah, that's irrelevant. Today's been a good day. I said yesterday that I was supposed to take Gracie to school today, so it'd be a good day to start early, right? And that ended up not happening. But yesterday I set up an appointment to go see about donating platelets again, because they keep getting these messages that there's a critical shortage at this point in time due to weather and accidents and whatever. So it's like, it's worth a shot, right? So I set up an appointment for this morning at 10:30, and my iron was too low, which I knew was a possibility, because really it's awfully close to the period, so sorry, it's what it is. And yeah, so my iron wasn't agreeable to donate platelets today, so I gotta postpone that till later. But then I ended up going to the store for a little bit, since I'm in Greenwood and Sam's Club's here. Then Mom was like, oh, hey, we should get these things. It's like, oh boy. Let me go to shopping at Sam's Club. Whatever. Got some stuff. Got more than was on the list, because she said to add a couple of things. Well, I mean, I was looking for like chicken or whatever for me and my dad specifically. It's like, well, there were 3 types that I just decided to go along with. So yeah, even though it's like I really don't want to eat as much of that as I used to. Used to, it was a pretty easy go-to, but I mean, they did have like this chicken Alfredo that looked pretty good, and it cost $13.33. Since it had threes, it's like, I had to try it, so we'll see. Yeah, but anyway. Okay. I've talked about how I see like my twin flame's birthday everywhere, and there is, I don't know, some kind of electrical box over by the movie theater that I turn past when I go to the blood center, and it's got it on there. And granted, I know that it's there now, so I always take that road just because, well, yeah, go me. Because I know it's there, so yay. But then, when I left the blood center, not being able to donate, and they were all sad, I ended up next to a truck that had it on the license plate. And then there was another vehicle, I think it was in the Sam's parking lot. There was another vehicle that had it on the license plate. And then his initials, of course, were popping up in vehicles that, I mentioned yesterday that when I was trying to figure out over the summer, it's like, it just, for the hell of it, it's like, I wonder what his middle name is. And then, like, this name popped out on one of the tombstones, and it's like, is that it? And then, like, I kept seeing stuff that appeared to be confirming that was the name that would be his middle name, right? So then I was looking at, it's like, all right, well, if that's accurate, then that means these are his initials. And if that's the case, I want to see that somewhere where it's just so obvious, it like stands out and is like, hey, right here. And it's like very much for me, right? So as I was on my way back home that day, I was driving past this little campground, and there was a camper that had it right in the middle of the brand, whatever it was. It's like, okay, all three of them. It's like, all right, so that must be it. Because it was like, my head was just automatically drawn over there right at that exact moment that was exactly the camper that I saw, right? And then when I saw what that it was like basically confirmed, if you will, then it was like, well, as I was thinking about it, it's like, okay, so for this model or whatever of camper or brand or make, model, all that fucking stuff, I don't know. For that kind, it had his initials in it. So yeah, that made me think, because that was also the model, no, the make, I don't know, whatever it is, of the type of truck that my ex had. And so then it's like, okay, so basically what you're telling me is these initials have been following me around for all this time as well. It's like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then it was funny because, he had the truck when I started dating him. And it was an old truck, whatever. It was in okay shape. It didn't have an air conditioner, and it had other stuff that was not lovely. But before we moved to Alabama, I used a bunch of my student loan money to get it completely fixed, because if we were moving to Alabama and taking that truck with us, we were not going to be driving around southern Alabama without an air conditioner in this truck. It's like that. No, I just see that not being fun. So, I got the air conditioner replaced, and I got a bunch of other things fixed up on it, but at one point in there, okay, before we went to Alabama, he also did he have both? No. He got the car, I think, shortly after we started dating, because it was new to him, and he decided one day he was just going to, deconstruct as much of it as possible so he could see how it all fit together. It's like, that's really weird. But okay, if that's your freaking hobby, you can have at it, I guess. I knew he worked on his like aircraft quality control or whatever. So it's like, all right, if you also know cars, then by all means, as long as you can put it back together after you took it apart, right? So that was early on, but that was irrelevant because that vehicle actually has a name that is relevant as well for my journey, but not to the specific twin flame situation. I mean, like an offshoot of it. So it's connected, very much connected, but yeah, whatever, it is what it is. But anyway, when we ended up in Alabama, at some point, okay, this is like a 6.5 year span. I don't really remember when everything happened. I can kind of figure it out and navigate it that way, but yeah, some of it, I don't know. But I remember, I think the last time squirrels are fighting in front of me. The last time we got a tax return together, he decided rather than fix the car and get it back into working condition, we should get a new car. It's like, and it was another one of those things that it was just like, you're going to do whatever the fuck you want, so just do it. Why are you even asking me at this point? We both know you're going to do it anyway just because you want to. So, you know, since this isn't a team or anything, right? This is just me getting pulled along for like bullshit's sake. It goes right to that point of he was basically a catalyst because he got me to realize like the absolute bottom line. It's like, there is no more going past this. It's like, I will not allow myself to be treated like shit anymore. It was basically like the point of that relationship. It was like, how badly do I need to be treated before I start drawing lines and saying, no, this isn't the existence that I want to live, right? So, yeah. So anyway, that was on the list. This is everything that went into those moments of do whatever the fuck you want because that's all that matters to you anyway. So, yeah. So he gets this little SUV, and it too had those initials in it. And one day I will tell you what those are, but not today. I mean, I can say the first ones are, which that in and of itself is pretty, you know, easy to pair with stuff. So yeah. But there's that. So I've been thinking a lot today about like renaming shit again. And yesterday in the video, it went kind of heavy, or to heavy, some heavy spaces, topic wise. And then I was like, is it that technically this is one of those things where I feel like to be politically correct or whatever, I should have a trigger warning of some sort on there because I know I talked about it. You know, also I have, you know, not a huge following at this point in time, which is okay for me. Like, at this point in time, I'm exactly where I need to be. And that is all, like, as far as the following, all that stuff, it is exactly where it is meant to be for me to feel comfortable to come out of my shell more and to venture into the stuff that's eventually going to bring about the people that actually like to hear what I have to say or whatever. Yes, and I've been thinking about it a lot today, and I have been doing these. Okay, so the Twin Flames 1111 page has this like activation thing that I got last year. Like once I was really kind of agreeing with the universe that this is the path I'm on, and you seem to be guiding me in this direction. I don't get it, but I'm gonna go along with it, right? So it's like this, like a upper chakra activation kind of a thing, like because okay. people typically are familiar with like the root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, crown. Oh, third eye and crown. It's like, I know I'm missing one. What is it? So it's like, those are the ones that people are generally aware of, right? So this is like an activation to get like the ones beyond that, like for the higher self area. There are those that are way above our heads, and then there are those that go into the earth, right? So there are like far more chakras than we're even really aware of. And I remember my naive little trying to force myself to sticking with Christianity. I wouldn't have even bothered trying to hear somebody talk about this kind of stuff, which is a big part of my channel too. It's like, I'm for the people that are that have been hurt by especially that particular belief system. Yes, those are my people. It's like, I've been doing a lot of thinking about a lot of things lately, and just the idea of, okay, I remember being in church and it was such a big deal that they always wanted to emphasize that Jesus hung out with the sinners. It's like, y'all, you're missing the part where the ones he hung out with weren't the ones that were actively going to, I mean, they might have been going to services, I don't know, but, like the ones that have had kind of the reputation for being heathens in some kind of way, or the tax collector, and whatever else. Everybody had their shtick, right? And he like called together his group, and it wasn't because they went to the synagogue to to rally around. It's like, it really just floors me how he comes and has this life, and it's exactly to show you you are not bound by the shit that's in place. And so we just developed this whole other system to bind people right back to the shit that keeps people stuck. It's like, okay, so this upper chakra thing, right? So it's like this activation, try to connect with higher levels of yourself, the more expansive way of being, I guess, of existing. And I'm starting like all these crazy connections, like it's insane. Anyway, when I first did this thing, the very first time, I had, there was, okay, like I said, it was early in the twin flame thing. I want to say it was like December 2024 that I started messing around with this upper chakra activation stuff. And okay, I've talked on here before about how I committed my love life and my career over to the universe to lead back in, I think it was like August or September. Okay, I think September, because August I got the lip ring and the nose rings, and when I did that, I set the intention that I was never again going to work in a job that asked me to be anything other than 100% who I am and who I came here to be, right? So I set this intention, and then I watched this movie with my mom, and it's like, maybe I'm ready to be ready to think about like this whole relationship thing again, right? I was like, well, I sucked at that. My track record was not good at all. The last person I married, the only person I married, the last person I was involved with, I didn't even like. It's like, obviously, I was making bad decisions, right? Because I was moving from that space of, what the church had taught me and what like shitty belief systems that, okay. You can watch any kind of movie, and it seems like most of them are going to bring it back to this whole idea of heaven versus hell, and you know, there's this terrible place you're gonna go when you die thing. So it's like, obviously Christianity and its beliefs are like so deeply entrenched in everything that it's very hard to separate away from it. And that's one of the things that I've been working on navigating myself. And I watched this movie on Netflix, and I don't know what it was. I don't remember anything. And it's like, well, I remember there was like a group of friends, and I don't know if they were like going on like some sort of ghost hunting type mission or something. But the biggest thing that I loved about this movie was it did not go that route at all. Like, hell as as, you know, the be all end all of where the fuck ups go in the end. No, it wasn't a thing, right? It's like, that made for a really good movie, because it wasn't this idea that's been beaten over our heads. You know, especially it has been beaten over my head a lot because I grew up in the church. But then, okay, so, well, I mean, not all my years were there, because there were some that I wanted very much to not be a part of it. But then, you know, there's this whole suicidal ideation piece where I thought that maybe that was the only way to get through that. And that piece goes back to the Jesus piece, but not in the way that I was raised to believe or like the church wanted me to believe, right? It wasn't this God figure outside of yourself that you're supposed to worship and follow him, blah, blah, blah. It was, he showed you what is possible. He showed you that it is possible to do this healing work to move beyond hell. As I've said many times, my grandfather showed me that this earth space is hell, right? Because we come here, we forget who we are, and we have to learn everything all over again. And then we get locked into these beliefs, especially the ones that have been beaten over our heads so much. Christianity is a big one. So yeah. Okay, so let me say yeah again. Okay. Regroup. How did I even get there? Yeah, so when I was getting my divorce, that like the week I left, the Sunday before I left, I took my former stepson to church because I was trying to get him hooked up with some other kids nearby that maybe some would go to his school or whatever, just as a way to get him connected, because he was new to the area, he was new to the school, he was new to everything. So it's like, let's find a way to get him connected with other kids his age. And I don't regret that at all, because, you know, that was something for me when I was involved with the church, especially in like my high school years. You know, like the friends that I went to church with were really important to me. And of course, like Tyler and Paul were the reasons that we started going to that church, because they started inviting like everybody. It's like, hey, we have this youth group. Our church is getting ready to start this youth group, and you know, it was a thing. So then we were all like the founding members of this thing because like it started and we were all there, right? But it was a big connection point, and the youth pastor was fabulous, and yeah, the pastors were both great back then. Well, those two were like the best, but then it seems like there's some sort of jacked up idea within that specific church, that the pastors are supposed to get ousted so the flock doesn't get too dependent on them or whatever. Whatever happened, they got shooed along to the next thing. And the next two pastors that came in were okay, but they weren't the same. We loved them. There's like, I think that some of us appreciated them too much, that it probably made, those people that had been there and had their like claws in the foundation of the church because they've been there so long, that they didn't like it because newer generations, or like the younger generations that weren't founding members of the church itself, were getting too comfortable there. That's my theory. Anyway, yeah. So I know from my personal experience that it was a good way to get connected with other kids. Oh, there's a whole lot of other things with that. I keep coming across this idea that, okay, teachers, we need teachers, right? And I mean, we need other people that have been through things to show us that what is possible, whatever. But the thing that keeps coming up is you can't get too overly dependent on the teacher, right? Oh, go away. Sorry. I hit my phone. I was trying to get a message to go off of there. My dad's sending stupid YouTube videos again. Goody. Anyway, so you can't rely on the teacher forever. You have to figure things out for yourself at some point in there, right? And that's always been a big struggle for me. Especially, all these Cancer placements in the 12th house have been pretty intense, right? And then I discovered yesterday, and I forgot to write it down, I was going to get the little thing off my pattern app that I had written down, but I forgot to. So, oh well. I'm not going to refer to that, because if I do, I'll lose the video. And I'm 27 minutes in, so why would I want to do that? Anyway, it said something about a Neptune complex. It says, not everybody has a Neptune complex. And it's like, but you do. It's like, oh goody, what's that mean? And it said, since Neptune is opposing my moon in Cancer in the 12th house, okay, the Neptune aspect of it means I get lost in the dreamy sort of space, not really having a firm footing on the earth. And like, yeah, basically more shit to add on to why I'm 41 and just now starting to figure things out for myself is basically the point. It's like, oh, there's more. Good. Thank you. I needed more. I needed more things to get caught up in and distracted by and not know my ass from a hole in the ground on the way. It took a long time to try to navigate through any of that shit. So, hey, whatever. Now we're doing it. Now we're going to figure out what, all the ins and outs to this chaos and why I got so stuck in taking on everybody else's shit as my own and thinking it was something I had to deal with because I could see that they were hurting for this, and this reason, but they weren't interested in doing the healing work. So somehow it became my burden to carry. It's like, no. That's why boundaries are important, but I didn't know that back then. That wasn't a thing that we ever learned. In fact, it's quite the opposite. If you look at anything. How much does religion and politics try to infiltrate every freaking aspect of life possible just so certain people can thrive and the rest of us suffer. Fuck that. Okay, so, the upper chakra thing. Let's go back there. Because that's where I started on this random chaotic tangent. Okay, so, the upper chakra thing. The very first time I did this activation, it was right before I went to bed. And after I did it, it was this 38-minute thing. And walking from my office where I'd done this meditation to my bedroom, I was like leaning on the wall because it's like I felt like I was seasick. Like I was on the freaking boat in the middle of the ocean in the middle of a storm. It's like, what the fuck is going on? And like I felt very seasick, basically. And since I was new to the grounding idea and was trying to work on that, I didn't really have a whole lot that okay, so I have my rocks, right? And I have a lot of rocks for grounding. But yeah, I don't even know. Okay. I know I've made a list of like the rocks that I wear in one of my videos, but I don't know where it was. So I should do that again where I just have a number of this is how many are specifically for the grounding purposes. Because like right here, I can see I have mookaite. I have tourmalinated quartz, black moonstone, larvakite, hawk's eye, black aura hypersthene, bronzite, citrine, cool car, obsidian, sunstone. Don't park next to, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to pause it because they have a dog. Yay. Okay, maybe not. Oh, yep, we're going to. Hold on. I'm just gonna, yeah. I knew that was gonna be fun. I had to shut this off for like 5 minutes because the lady parks and lets her dog out of the car, and he's got like this leash tied to the inside of the car, but he can come. Okay, she parked like 2 spaces over, right? And her dog gets out of the car and has access to come all the way over into our space. It's like, damn it. And then she proceeds to stop and get in the trunk of her car so she can get her boots, so she can get in the car and sit in the car and change her shoes. It's like, dude. And these guys were just going nuts. Anyway, so yes, grounding rocks. So I have a bunch, right? Anyway, so I was walking down the hall and I was like seasick. Like even I went and laid down and was like, nope, this isn't working. I got up and had like a baked potato. It's like grounding foods, you know. And then I had at some point we steamed up the windows a whole lot with all that barking. So, yeah. So at some point on this twin flame journey, I started realizing it's like, it was like going within. It's like there was this space where he was already there, right? So I have this thing, this activation that I'm doing, and I get really freaking sick because I'm like completely not grounded at all. And so I, you know, I go have my food, I go lay down, and it's like, wait a second, it's like, okay, I know that I've had this little space where it's like, I'm basically turning within, but it's like he's already there, right? So, you know, I just go to the space, and, you know, and I see him sitting on a couch, and I like lay down next to him and I have my head on his leg, and it's like, you know, trying to make the earth or like the world stop spinning or whatever. And it's like something about that space and being in that atmosphere, energy, whatever. It's like, it was very calming and like very grounding in the connection, right? So it's like anytime like I'd start getting really ungrounded, I find I could just like turn to this place that's like within, but that he's already there. And as I'm talking through this, it's like that even makes perfect sense to me now too, because okay, so I have long been drawn to the old yin yang, right? And I had like a pair of earrings back in 7th grade that I used to wear, and I used to get a lot of comfort from them in some kind of way, but I didn't really understand it, right? And I've talked on here before about how I've always known that there's like one specific person that I was meant to find in my lifetime, right? And I just kept getting distracted with really bad ones because, or well, not one really bad one, but with scenarios that I knew weren't right for me. Like the first boyfriend, I knew he wasn't what I was looking for or who I was looking for, and so I was able to disconnect from that one easier, but then the second one started getting more distracted with all the shit that the church input and influence had led me to believe, and it was like this forced, in my head it became a forced thing because I thought this was supposed to be the thing. I had all these beliefs that made me think that I was supposed to marry this guy, and then it didn't work out. And then when it didn't work out, then I thought I was shit. So I lost myself because I went into the military, and there was like all this other stuff that came up. So it's like I went to this darker space, and I got to a point where I basically in that time frame I hated myself, and that is the only reason that last ex was able to get into my space and have any kind of connection there. And then he was like a freaking parasite that I couldn't get out of my energy. It's like, what is happening? So yeah. But anyway, going back to this thing. So it's like, depending on how you're looking at it, it makes sense for different things, right? There's a little bit of the light and the dark, the little bit of the dark and the light, and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, as I've been on this journey, it has taken that to a whole new level. So yeah, there, if you want to consider it light and dark, masculine, feminine, yeah, that's a big one, because church wants you to believe that it is very set on its dualistic thinking about genders and whatnot, and there's the male, there's the female, and you're united in marriage, and that's the thing, right? That's the whole purpose. It's like, that's not it at all. It's basically, if you're to be full in who you are in your little section of this little thing, you have to acknowledge the fact that the other exists there too already. So for my twin flame journey that started on this idea back in the spring sometime last year, I got set on this point. It's like, okay, so my Venus sign is in Leo, and I know his sun sign is in Leo, but I don't know anything else of his chart, obviously, because I haven't met him in person yet. So with what I was starting to realize and the connections I was starting to make, it's like, all right, so if my Venus sign is in Leo, and Venus is, love and art and beauty and that kind of stuff, right? Don't commit to the exact specifics of my journey if you're watching this for yourself per se, because everything that I have been learning is my stuff based on like my chart and the stuff that I've picked up along the way. Like, obviously astrology is not one of my strong points, but I am much more in tune with how like certain parts, like the 12th house is, kind of the subconscious, the unknown kind of things, dreamy, whatever. The stuff that's harder to really understand, spirituality stuff. Yeah, so then I have these placements in this house. The placements, Cancer is ruled by the moon, which goes into that deep, dark, unknown stuff all over again, and then add in my Neptune opposing my Mars and Cancer. It's like, hell, what kind of fun did I sign up for in this lifetime? Because it's getting interesting. So there's that. But okay, so I started looking at it as so my Venus is in Leo, which is his sun sign. So it's like, obviously that's some kind of connection point for our specific connection. I don't think this is even true for like every other twin flame situation out there. Use freaking discernment. If it resonates for you, there might be something to it. If it doesn't, then it's not for you, and leave it alone. That doesn't mean it's wrong. That just means it's not for you. So it's not your specific way of doing it, right? So anyway, I digress. Yeah, so then it's like, okay, so if this is the idea, then perhaps his Venus would be in Cancer, because then, how I look at it now is, okay, we're just going to focus on the dark side on here, right? Because everybody wants to, the church would have you think that the feminine is bad. And women are supposed to be submissive to the males because why? Because that's bullshit is why. Because that keeps us locked into the mindset that we need somebody to lead us and to guide us and to fix all the things for us, because we cannot do it on our own. But the thing is, you already have everything you need. And so, so if I am this lonely little dark side over here, then that little bit of the light would be where I carry him with me, right? And same going the other way. His side would be the light side, or at least in this scenario. I don't know that it always works that way, but I have heard that the feminine is the dark and the masculine is the light, but there's so much more to that. And yeah, people want to make it too simplistic, and this is just nothing simplistic, really. So it's like, separately, we still carry one another within us, right? So, God, this window is driving me nuts. It's like not defogging at all. Anyway, I'm just hoping that those people don't come, or that person doesn't come back with their dog before I'm done. Yeah. So it's about unifying my side of it, right? So that's a big thing with the twin flame journey, is coming into union within yourself. It's opening to that heart connection that's already there, the thing that the world wants us to not use, and you get made fun of for if you're deemed to be too sensitive or too emotional or whatever. But that's kind of our connection point. So just because you have the feminine packaging on the outside, then your heart space is going to have some degree of the masculine, right? Okay. And vice versa. But you have to basically come into union with your own heart. And the heart is divine access point. So when I say, come into union with, when I say that my counterpart is the little dot that I carry within me, that doesn't mean that it's the energy, I think, basically, and not, because I've never met him, right? So, but still, coming into union with your heart, it's like that union piece, that space of love, that is where the divine has its power. And they were like straight fours when I said that. 4, 4, 4, 4. Yeah. So, right. So it's, you come into union within yourself with this other aspect of yourself. And what it is also stepping into your power as a divine being, if you will. But like, this is all energetically speaking, right? So everybody wants to get like so locked in on this freaking idea of keeping things separate, making it all, keep staying locked into the duality of things. It's like, that's not the point at all. If you want to find the divine, you have to bring it into union and realize that we are all connected. We are all essentially one. It's like the ocean in a drop, right? You have the entire ocean within a single drop. And yeah, that's basically the same, right? So it's like, we're all here. Hey, quit licking the seat, dude. Oh, here we go to that again. Yeah, so it's like, we have to realize that we are divine as well, because we are a piece of the whole, right? And so, to really do anything with that, you have to come into union within yourself, with your own heart space, because that is, let your heart guide you, and then we might actually stand to make some differences in the world, some changes where there needs to be some change, right? Yeah, so my nose itch. Right. So that's like a big thing that I've been realizing too, right? Okay. So, and then if we want to keep with that idea, then we go into the whole, see, this started, I had a day where it's like, I felt his energy with me, and I know that, I know that sounds crazy, right? But like, energetically speaking, we are all already together. Because that whole heart piece, and once you like come into union with your own heart is the key. And that's why it's so important that religion and politics keeps us divided and separate from our heart, because then the ones that want to be in control while everybody else suffers, they have no reason to think, they fear they're going to be challenged or whatever. But as we, connect with our heart space and come into union with all that we are, which is why it is not helpful if you like hold viewpoints about all, men being bad or women being whatever stereotypes you've heard, you got to throw those away, because they're trash. Basically, not everybody's bad. Basically, the darkness comes when the light forgets itself, right? So if that's the case, then that's the whole situation on the planet anyway. And how everybody's kind of running around in the dark, and see, and that gives me like, that's where I feel like, okay, I made a comment on here a while back about how basically we're just walking around in the subconscious, like this Earth's place is the subconscious, because we are kept in the dark. There's so much we're not able to know because we forget when we come back here. Yes. I said that. Going to that reincarnation piece, which we actually started talking about in group this week, but I've been like, I commit to that wholeheartedly. I absolutely believe that's a thing, because why would it ever be one and done? And what's the point of that? Come on, it's lame. It's like our lifetimes serve as space to learn and to grow and to be able to make things better. And so, if you're one of those people that hates God because God is clearly allowing things to go to shit, but you're not doing anything to fix what you can in your space, then you're contributing to the problem, right? So if you want to see God move, then you got to start looking at things differently and realizing that you're a piece of this puzzle too. And you have to, if you unify with your heart and are led by your heart rather than the freaking fears that religion and politics want to keep, and the media want to keep you locked into, then, well, then they're not going to be very happy, when people start living more from that space and realizing that what they're trying, the shit that they're selling us is bullshit, like absolute bullshit, and it's to keep certain individuals in power while all the rest of us suffer, and that's never been okay with me. I'm not somebody that can just, okay, we're just gonna take getting fucked over forever, but it's that point where this earth plane existence is very difficult because we have to come into it and forget everything about who we are and where we've been in our other lifetimes. And then we get locked into these things that, bad ways of thinking. And okay, this is a big thing that just drives me nuts. Like, all right, like storytelling, okay? It's like, I mentioned that piece where Christianity just permeates through everything because it's been around so long and everything, right? It's like if you watch a Christian movie, it's like, here's this whole thing, and they have the potential, they could theoretically make it go somewhere decent, but no, they're gonna beat you over the head with the fucking point, because that's all they have. And if you get out of line and start realizing that their fucking point is absolute bullshit, then they're gonna have a whole lot of people getting out of line. Which is why they want to keep us in fear, because if you start living in love and moving in love, and actually taking the teachings of Jesus, that whole love piece, if you take that to heart and, put your heart into that, God is love, right? God, and that was a point with this whole, like, twin flame thing, too. It's okay. This journey is not for everybody. I've heard a lot of people talk about how it's like, if you're on this specific twin flame journey, then this is your last lifetime. And, hey, I got no problem with that. This has been a doozy. So it's not been a bad life per se. It's just been very difficult at times. And so, so actually, I was in the group on Wednesday, and, at one point, this very thing came up, and she said, does anybody here feel like this is their last lifetime? And everything in me wanted to be like, yes, I do! But then I hesitated, and then nobody else raised their hand, and it's like, I don't want to, maybe not. But it's like, but I do feel that. And then when we went out to dinner afterwards, there were a couple of things, but one of them was on the way out. I was leaving at the same time she was. I was like, everything in me wanted to just raise my hand and be like, yes, I do. It's like, but then everybody was thinking about it, but I don't want to be done and all this stuff. It's like, but I do. It's like, I'm okay with that. And she's like, well, that's okay too. She said, you should have raised your hand. It's like, I just lose myself in these things. And right. So that goes back to this other point where, okay, when I was sitting with the people at the table, and okay, at one point, this guy that I hadn't seen in a while, but it's like I didn't immediately remember who he was until he sat down next to me. And then I remembered I've seen him with his wife, and he's brought his 2 kids in a few times. And so yeah, like he came in, he was by himself at the restaurant, and he joined us when he realized we were there. And he heard me talking, like I was telling the story about how, okay, that one day when I was putting laundry away and listening to this one song on repeat. And first what happened was I saw myself in the scenario where I was like yelling at my mom and my grandma about, just because you stuck with somebody for all this time doesn't mean you did so out of love. You did so because you're afraid there was nothing else better out there, and then nothing would ever pan out if you left the situation, because they wanted people to be yeah, that is why, like, everybody trash talks divorce and all this stuff, because they get you locked in with somebody that is absolutely not for you, and then make you feel stuck, and like, if you leave, that's the thing that's going to be the problem. And it's not. And that's part of the reason why that was part of my path, was because I had to figure that out for myself, to remember that for myself, that there's so much more. You don't have, if you get yourself in a situation you're not meant to be in, then you can undo it. And it might be hard. It's going to be hard, probably. But if you got yourself into that situation, you don't have to be forever bound to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it, is the point. And, you know, that's a big part of why I never went back to church after I left, because I realized all my bad beliefs that got me into that relationship to begin with, let alone feeling stuck and like it was a problem for me to leave. Like, all of that stuff stemmed from shit that I picked up from, you know, world politics and religion and all that bullshit, you know. And so it's like, when I left that, it's like, fuck it, I'm not doing that no more. You know. No. You know, so now we got to unravel all these pieces and realize how I got stuck, right? And, you know, it's that whole point where you're so afraid to do anything because you're afraid you're going to be forever dead and rotting in hell. But whatever okay, the fact that you come here and forget everything about who you are and why you're here, that's hell. It is. And you have to navigate through that space before you can actually live. And that was the bigger point of the Jesus story. And yet you don't get that bit because they get so fixated on damning people to hell. You know, and yeah, like specifically like the biggest, most devout church going people, you know, where it kind of becomes a cult because they're so set on beating people over the head with these ideas, and, you know, like killing whole groups of people off. You know, there's a lot said about, you know, like the pagans and how terribly they treated the Christians, and yet the Christians were the ones that were running around killing them to begin with, but to get rid of them, to get rid of these ideas that, you know, didn't line up with what they wanted you to believe, that lets the whole freaking political system look like shit that it is. You know, and it really, okay, it's like the red and the blue exist together because it's a back and forth, right? It's just trying to stay locked into the duality. It's nobody in that system gives a shit about bringing things into balance, because then they lose control. And then certain people aren't able to stay in power and, you know, keep everybody else suffering and paying into their pockets by slaving their lives away, because, you know, they might figure something out, right? So, yeah. I was thinking I might call my channel, like, take it from the family disappointment to trigger warning, because it's like I never know where these videos are going to go, and I feel like, you know, everybody wants to include a trigger warning if there's some kind of topic that's going to piss somebody off or upset them. It's like, well, how about I just call my channel that, and you can just stay away from it if you're somebody that needs to avoid that. And if you're somebody that wants to be like, hey, what's this all about? You know, then, yeah. I think that's probably more how my people find me anyway, right? So, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I don't know where to go from there. This has kind of been all over the place anyway, which is a story of my life. What else do I do? Yeah, like that, releasing the chaos from my system so I can see it outside of my system and then start making other things make sense. That's basically what this amounts to. But yeah, it's like you have to unify with that part, or with your heart, where it's always been. Okay, so, all right, let's see if I can do it one-handed. All right, so I got as above, so below. Be the little heart space, right? As within, the little dot up there, so without, right? Like, I saw myself the other day, like I had this little, I saw myself in another space. You can't argue with that. I mean, I might sound delusional, but I don't care because I know what I mean. And so others are going to pick that up as well. You know, getting past that point of I'm not for everybody. I'm not meant to be. Nobody's meant to be for everybody, because we would all go nowhere if we were trying to do that. Which is, there again, another one of those key pieces of religion and politics. Yeah. So I saw, it's like I saw myself with him, and it's like I was touching his face, and it's like, as above, so below. And it's like, in his heart space, it's like, as within, so without. It is I, haha. So, yeah. So it's like, in all the years of staying bound to this idea of women are supposed to be submissive, and, need to ask men for help and guidance on the leadership and blah, blah, blah. You're not supposed to speak in church kind of bullshit. All that shit, right? So, the biggest thing that this twin flame journey has taught me is that, like, he's already an aspect of me, right? It's something I've literally carried around with me my entire life. But, you know, everything in the world around me taught me that it's not good to be these things. So, you know, have to be meek and submissive and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, fuck that. But then, okay, that point of, you know, back in the spring, I was talking about, like, this point of, he is the frame, I am the flow. So I've always had this part of the frame within me as well. So it's like, that makes it a lot, oh man, it's like it was there all along and I just didn't know. The deal with the guy the other day. Okay, so I mentioned the guy at the restaurant that joined us, that had been in the class before, but I haven't seen him in a while. So he sits there, and he heard me talking to these other people about that point where I was listening to the song on repeat, and I went from yelling at my mom and my aunt, or my mom and my grandma about, you know, just because you stay with somebody for a long time doesn't mean you stayed with them because you were in love. It meant you were too afraid to do anything else. It was still an abusive situation. It was very toxic, right? So then I, like, see it shift, and suddenly I'm on the set of this music video that I clearly was not at, because I was listening to the YouTube video, or I was watching the video on YouTube, and I just kept hitting the button so in replay, and I love that song, and one day I'll tell you about it, but yeah, so it shifted from where I'm yelling at my mom and my grandma to I'm on this set of this music video with these guys that I've just met, and at one point and I think the transition point was where I, like, fell face first into the laundry on my bed and started tearing up, because it's like, I think the shift was somewhere in there. It's like, it shifted from, like, I was supposed to be this meek, mild person and blah, 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 and then I'm, like, standing up for this thing, and this is bullshit, and then I'm shifting into this other space, like a higher level of myself, if you will. And so I shift into this other space, and I'm with these guys, and then my focus, like, I find myself, like, I just walk over to this little, like, half wall thing and sit down in front of it, and I I kind of get all curled up like this and put my hood up over my head and my face down, and I'm just talking to him, and it's like, you know how really awkward and ugly hermit crabs are when they go between their shells, and it's just like, it's like I feel exposed like a hermit crab going between shells, right? And then later, when I was writing about that, it was like, but they have to leave their old home to go to their new home because they outgrew it, so then it was like, it's a sign of growth that you're feeling exposed because you don't fit in the old way of being anymore, and it's this, but I was so focused on the exposure part. So I'm talking to these people at the table the other night, and I tell them this story about me having this vision play out in my mind, and the guy that had just joined us said something, or he asked the girl across from me, he said, "Are you a Cancer?" And she said, "No, she is," because, he said he heard that we were talking about the hermit crabs, and it made him think that, and he said, he's also a Cancer, and it's like, okay, so I was talking about that exposure piece with him, and he says, but if you how is it he said it? Something to the effect of, but if you let yourself be seen, that's like goddess energy. It's like, fuck yeah, dude. It's like, what the hell am I holding back on anything then? And like, I've had just like crazy things. It's like, the times when I like almost broke out into song when I was with some people, like, okay, when I was at one of my annual trainings, like probably the last one, I was with the staff sergeant that was kind of in charge of me, if you will, and the sergeant first class that was kind of in charge of all of us, and the other chaplain assistant. We were all together for some reason. I don't remember what was happening. I think it was something with everybody else was on the range or something, and we were kind of set at this one section. I don't remember. Anyway, we're in the truck, right? And at some point, they start breaking out into Ice Ice Baby, and it's like everything in me wanted to like just jump on the next little bit of that song, and I didn't. It's like, why didn't I? In those moments. And I had like a scenario play out in my head last night where I saw myself kind of doing one of those things with a different song. And, okay, last night the one that came up that I was really kind of locking in on was The Offspring's Pretty Fly for a White Guy. And it's because the numbers 13 and 31 have been coming up a lot lately. And then even that goes way back because, I think my brother said, okay, one of his numbers when he played hockey was 31. And I think he'd also had 13 for a time as well. So somehow that came up and he's like, oh yeah, well, there's 13 too, or something. It's like, huh, really? But it's following me around like in other spaces. And like last night I was looking at this little hygrometer thing in my office or in my bedroom that said it was like 31% humidity in there. And it's like, there's that number again. So I just like see myself interacting with this group of people and just like randomly breaking out into song. It's like, this is stuff that everything in me my entire life has been telling me to shrink. It's like, I think I'm finally at the point I don't want to shrink anymore. It's like, let's go full into all weirdness, right? Let's just embrace the weird and see where it goes. And I think that's kind of the point of what I'm supposed to do now. But I mean, just because I'm talking about breaking out into song randomly doesn't mean I'm going to do it on here. I probably will at some point, but not today. But yeah, there's just something that came up that I started thinking about, and it's like, ooh. It's like, there's been all kinds of things through my lifetime where I get excited about something and everything in me wants to do or say the thing, and then it's like, nope, can't do that. And then maybe somebody else does, or maybe it just like gets passed off and nobody does it. But it's like, They just saw 31 on the timer when I looked up at that. Okay, so yeah, it's like, why? It's like, that's very much a part of that shrinking, right? So stop shrinking. Yes, and I think we can all learn from that one. Yeah, but I feel like this is long enough for a video, and I don't know when the lady is going to get back with her dog, but I would like to get these guys out of here before that happens. So I'm going to wrap it up and call it a day. As always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see ya.